Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm Jeff Dover. With me is John Barbin. Let's talk football.
Let's talk football. This is NCAA week. What are we at? 8, I think, reaction. It's a hell of a weekend. There's some good stuff, and was there some bad stuff.
Lots to talk about. Good weekend of college games, though.
I really don't understand how the NFL's ever going to compete. I mean, I get it. Everyone there is like at a higher level of skill.
Yeah.
But if a higher level of skill across the board just means more boring games, then college is always going to win.
Just for entertainment value, it's just the college is really good. Like after watching the games yesterday, I was setting my recordings for what to watch today. And I was like, I guess I'll record the Giants game. Like, I don't, but it was a completely different feeling when I was scheduling the Bama Tennessee game. I'm like, I can't wait to watch this.
Yeah.
And scheduling the Georgia Texas game, I'm like, I can't wait to watch this. So I just don't have that feeling. Like I am interested in the Houston Green Bay game, but the rest of it is,
Niners Chiefs, the Super Bowl rematch. There's 2 or 3 games, but other than that, I don't get how the NFL has higher ratings than college. I just don't get it.
No, consistently, a real
given the excitement factor of many college games over the NFL. Also, there's just not a lot to choose from in the NFL. Anyways, we're doing our college reaction. Let's already talking too much about the NFL. All right, let's get to. So we're going to start with our best ever, working backwards from 3 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
Shall I just jump right in?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, number 3 best ever, Indiana Hoosiers.
I
started off with their Hoosiers offense, but then I realized they just crushed them on both sides of the ball. And it was just a completely overwhelming, dominant win. They're just an avalanche. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what was the 2 quarterbacks played for Indiana? Did Jackson get injured?
No, the starter is Rourke.
The starter was Rourke. Oh, so then they pulled him and then played the backup?
Curtis Rourke from Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Oh, no way. Really?
Your hometown.
Oh, shit.
And he during a play, he threw a ball and hit his thumb on someone's helmet. And then they just said precautionary. And then the backup came in and looked just as good.
No kidding. 7 for 8 for 91 yards and 2 TDs. Like that's the backup. That's what
I mean. If you guys haven't watched Indiana, you have to get eyes on this team. They haven't played a dominant team yet, or what you would call a top tier team, but they're crushing everyone they play the way you would expect a top 5 team to just put teams away with no chance.
No, and this was supposed to be I was looking forward to this game, and it's supposed to Nebraska is a good team. This sort of felt like this would have been a test board, but oh man, was it not? It was, they really handled them. So, and it's
I wouldn't say Nebraska's a basement dweller. This isn't Northwestern or something. No offense, Northwestern fans, but you know what I'm talking about. This isn't the bottom of the Big Ten where you just expect a team to roll over them. But Indiana's blasting teams. Put it this way: if we took away the names of the teams and you said this was a Big Ten game, you'd probably think that was Ohio State that did that, not Indiana.
Well, and what was crazy too, going into the game, I remember thinking the over-under was 47.5, which Indiana got all by itself. So that's pretty impressive. That doesn't always happen.
So this team, man, on alert now. This team is just rolling on both sides of the ball. The offense is so much fun to watch. And also Curt Cignetti, the head coach, he came from JMU, and he went 52-9 at JMU. And remember, they won their conference, but they didn't let them compete in the playoffs, or didn't let them actually play in the postseason because something to do with being the first year at FBS level, which was total nonsense. Yeah. So this guy's legit. He's got to be the hottest coaching candidate in the country. And they showed a little clip of him at the basketball game when he addressed the crowd. Did you see this?
No.
And he just said, we're going to kick their ass. He just was like, no, we're just going to crush everybody. We're here to kick everyone's ass. It was none of this we're going to, play the right way. And I'm really building this program. He's like, no, we're going to kick everyone's ass. And that's exactly what they're doing. So I like his attitude, and it shows with the team. And I don't know, maybe it'll change when they play against some tougher teams, but they look legit to me. So because they're blasting teams that top teams should blast. They haven't had any trouble. So
No, and that's
good for the Hoosiers.
That's the perennial thing with Indiana. Like sometimes they've looked really good, but then with the easier schedule, and then when they finally face a tough team, they're not doing the same thing. But Nebraska is not a bad team. Like so, that was impressive.
The Hoosiers made them look bad. All right,
Yeah.
what's your number 3?
All right, so my number 3 is the service, 2 of the service academies. Hats off to them. So both Army 7-0 and Navy is 6-0, and they're really, just it's great to see them both ranked and both playing this well. Army's offense is amazing, and their defense is amazing. The only one that has better points per game is like Ohio State and Texas, I think. Like it's really, now again, their schedule isn't been super difficult, but still they're beating everyone that's on their schedule, and they're playing extremely well. So it's just I love it when and then Navy's going to be playing Notre Dame, I think, coming up soon. So that's all of a sudden it's going to be probably a bit more interesting game than people thought. So just hats off to them. It's always cool when the service academies are doing well. And it was the Army quarterback had 5 rushing touchdowns and 1 passing, which is like the first time it's happened since the 40s, I think. So it was really cool.
All right, well, you stole my thunder. That was my number 1 best ever.
Oh, okay.
Was the Army QB. So you brought this to my attention on our preview show, and so I was like, okay, I got to watch this guy. That guy's awesome.
Yeah.
6 TDs, no interceptions. He's just a machine. That team, and the triple option's so much fun to watch. I can watch that all day.
When it's executed well, it's fantastic, and it puts so much stress on the defense. And that QB, like there was a run there where he wasn't running away from people, but he was absolutely just as fast as they were, like which doesn't always happen. So yeah, no, hats off to them.
And the few plays where they fake the run and throw the pass, everything just clicked. Everything was just working. So, and I have, the Army and Navy haven't been looking this dominant for a while, but somehow all of a sudden this season, I don't know if it's been building up, but I have a note here saying they combined for 96 points.
Yeah.
So forget Tom Fernelli's Service Academy unders. That's not
exactly.
Don't take the under on these teams.
Yeah.
I mean, Air Force, fine. Air Force isn't pulling their weight, but Army and Navy are real. And now, as we mentioned on the preview show, Army and Navy are for real challenge for Notre Dame. Especially to your point, it's a real pain to prepare for them because they play a completely different style.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so my number 2 best ever was the Big 12 comeback game-winning touchdown drives with less than 2 minutes in the game. All right, so it's a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah.
So BYU, I think they're on the wall back there. I don't know if you can see them. And Iowa State, I think I got them up there too. Did you get eyes on either of these games?
Yeah, I saw the BYU game. That was really back and forth, and Retzlaff's really good. They're also a pretty complete team. Like that was, it was disappointing just because like Oklahoma State, their starter went out, who was the younger QB. Bowman has a lot of experience, so it wasn't necessarily a big step down. But I really liked it. I was really enjoying watching the Oklahoma State QB before he got injured. But
yeah, well,
then, and it was the UCF thing with the guy dropping the ball. Like now, did that end up being a touchdown?
That's on my moron plan.
Okay,
but
right,
let's that's at the end. Let's give flowers to these 2 quarterbacks for engineering awesome game-winning drives. So BYU, that drive was a game-winning touchdown drive with 1:12 left, and I don't even think they had timeouts for that drive. And like you said, that was a huge, big momentum swings. There was multiple times where Oklahoma State took the momentum and looked like they were going to close that game out. BYU just kept coming back, and this team just plays fun games. Like this, if anyone hasn't been watching BYU, it's worth the watch. It's fun. And Retzlaff, you can't really count them out the way he's playing. They've done it enough this season that even if you think, this game's over, it isn't. You have to keep watching these teams. And then the exact same thing with Iowa State. So with 1:47 left, they have a game-winning touchdown drive. And I was going to say Rocco Becht, right now, if I had to pick one quarterback with 2 minutes left in the game, that's who I'd pick. You have to watch. I mean, multiple times they got to 3rd or 4th down and they needed a long pass or an intermediate pass. And he got it. Like he got out of trouble, found the guy when it looked like, okay, this game's over. I probably see 6 or 7 times. I'm like, they put up a good fight, but it's over. And then he found a guy and then he found another guy. So he's awesome. I have a note here saying he looks like a a slightly better passing version of Diego Pavia. But he can get out of trouble, and he can extend a play and decide when to throw or when to run, like right when you need it. And it's just like the game was hanging by a thread every time, and he got them there. So, and Iowa State's been doing this all year. They can't play a normal game. It has to be a crazy game till the end. And so they're the must watch on the must watch list for sure.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Do we want to do the moron play? I guess we're on this game now.
We can come back to it. We can.
Let's stick with the good stuff.
Yeah, you can come back to the moron play. I thought you had another moron play. That's why I brought it up. So, because I've got another one.
All right, well, then we'll do that
Which might
later.
be on your worst list. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
So the second best thing I saw this weekend was the Miami-Louisville game, and specifically Cam Ward. Cam Ward looks amazing. It's truly like people throw around like the gunslinger and, like that type of, name or nickname. But he really is like that. He'll put the ball in harm's way, but it's so overwhelmed by all the positive plays that he makes, and it's extremely entertaining. And it was really thought Miami had this more wrapped up than they did. It was closer than it should have been, I think, but Louisville just wouldn't go away, and it was a very entertaining game. So that was really good.
Yeah, I think I got them on the wall up there too somewhere. They had to get this. I had Cam Ward as one of my best players of the week, and was going to give him some flowers. So we'll get to that in the flowers section. But yeah, that game, Louisville put up a fight, but they just made, I think, too many mistakes. And to your point, Ward seems to find himself into trouble and then find himself back out of trouble.
Yes.
And every time it looks like he's going to take a 15-yard sack and just blow it. Somehow he just gets away. Rocco Beck plays a little bit like that. I just say Ward's just overall has more probably physical talent, but the two of them play a very similar style. And Bechtel throws some back-breaking picks, but then he'll come back. Maybe Pavi is right in there with them. They're all kind of like that. You just have to watch them. And I'd put money on them if I needed that one last drive. Ward's right in there too.
Yeah. And Cam Ward, last thing just about him, he does a really good job with the arm angle thing. I think some people try to do that when they shouldn't. But he's really good at it and throwing it like around his shoulder, his sidearm to get it to someone, and everyone they see it coming. Like they're waiting for it, even if he's just throwing it off to the side. So it's I think they've got it in practice. There's been enough times where like, I don't think I'm going to get the ball. Then, oh my goodness, here it comes. So they're ready to catch it, which is not always the case. That happened in some other games this week, as in the Georgia Texas one specifically, where they're all of a sudden someone would throw the ball to the person, they're not ready for it. So Miami was really good with that. So
yeah, now they could have lost that game. That was as far as a national ranking. That was, they put up a lot of points.
Tied in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so but they had a few things really go their way. The one of the worst things of the whole weekend was the fumble when the Cardinals were trying to get out of their own end, like on the 1 yard line. Miami pops the ball loose and they just land on it in the end zone for a touchdown. And that was after the Cards took back some momentum. Yeah. So they just really gutted themselves on that one play. And so if it weren't for some awful plays like that, where the Louisville's shooting themselves in the foot, they could have won that game. So Miami's got, even though they won, they got work to do. They got a lot of work to do. And their defense, you could say, kind of got exposed.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, you've already took my number one, which was Bryson Daily and Army. So we've already discussed them. So we can move on to your number one.
All right. So my number one thing was the shirts we're wearing right now, the game of the week, the Georgia-Texas game. I thought overall is a really good game. But really the best thing there's two best things that I had. It's co-best things for this game, which was everyone had Texas picked going into this. It started at Texas like 2.5 or 3, and it went all the way up to 5 or something. And because everyone was betting Texas, everyone thought that they were going to dominate and really take this game away. And Georgia in the first half was so dominant on defense. It was the second quarter, and Texas had like 14 total yards or something, which is crazy. And so that they really, just the way they asserted themselves, especially in the first half, I thought was amazing. And in a game that everyone was picking Texas, that was really impressive. And the second thing was the resilience. There was a really terrible pass interference call and then a delay with people throwing stuff in the field. And at that point, all the momentum was with Texas, and Georgia hung on to win. And then that was a really good resilience with that. So I thought that was the best thing that I saw this weekend.
Was specifically Georgia?
Yeah,
Or that,
Georgia,
yes.
their resilience, the way they
Yep.
absolutely dominated the first half, and then the resilience in the second half after some of the momentum changes and that really terrible call, like the way they handled themselves and won was one of the best things I saw.
Yeah. Among other things, one of the best things in that game, I think Georgia fans will agree, was Carson Beck did not have a good game. And in the second half, he had, in the fourth quarter with, I don't know, 5-6 minutes left, he had a key scramble that got them a first down that really didn't look like, it looked like he was dead to rights in the backfield.
Yeah.
And he found his way for a 5 or 6 yard scramble for a first down that to me was kind of a backbreaking play to Texas. I mean, Texas never felt like they were ever coming back anyways, but they, like, even in that moment, they needed that sack. They needed that, like, negative play. And he, to your point, resilience making it through a clunker of a game for him. And that scramble was kind of, you expect it from Cam Ward. You don't expect it necessarily in that style from Carson Beck. Like, that was just a gritty, find your way through the middle run. And to me, that was like a huge backbreaking play that kind of I think almost that scramble put them away.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I agree. I think it sealed the game, that one. And like you said, it's a resilience from Carson Beck, and it's a situational awareness. Like, he knew the first down was critical. Not that not that first downs are never important, but like that one was, it would seal the game. So that was, and like you said, he doesn't normally do that stuff, which was,
well, and it looked like a situation where he knew, I'm going to put my body at risk to get this first down. Like, he knew I'm going forward. Might be one of those situations where my linemen would just pile up and have a rugby style ruck to get over the line. Like, I thought that's where that thing was headed. But, and it was, as he was moving forward, I'm like, is he going to get this? And then he kept going. I was like, oh, he's going to get this. And then, he just knew, like, time to take this game away from, take the momentum away from Texas right now and put it away. And to me, that scramble was maybe the microcosm of that game being kind of ugly offense. It just was not a great offensive game for either team. That's actually one of my worst evers, is the offense in this game. But anyways, that one scramble was a microcosm of them coming back from bad plays to make the play that needed to be made. All right. So you want to move on to the worst ever?
Yeah, let's move on to the worst ever.
All right. My number 3 worst ever was Oklahoma's first quarter.
Oh, that's a good one.
That could be one of the worst quarters of football I've ever seen from one team. Now, I also want to give South Carolina its flowers. I moved their helmet to one of the pole position spots there. I don't know where it is. South Carolina had 9 sacks and 13 tackles for loss in that game. Their front 7 was completely dominating Oklahoma. They didn't even look like Oklahoma belonged on the field with that front 7. Oklahoma's offensive line just had nothing, absolutely no resistance to South Carolina's defensive line. And then I started thinking, oh, this is Oklahoma's paying for what happened to South Carolina in the Alabama and LSU games. Like, this is Oklahoma's getting the brunt of that frustration, where they could have easily won those 2 games, and they just blasted Oklahoma on a defensive side. I mean, South Carolina's offense did not play well, but it didn't need to.
No, and to your point too, South Carolina was extremely dominant that first quarter. And what adds on to it too is that they scored on offense regularly, and then they also scored on a fumble return, and then they also scored on a pick 6, right? So in addition to dominating the line of scrimmage, they were scoring in every way that you can, and that's really demoralizing if you're Oklahoma.
That game was over in the first quarter.
Yes.
Not only did Oklahoma go down 21-0, you could tell they're never going to put up any fight here with how bad their offensive line was playing. And then Hawkins got pulled, and then they put Arnold back in. So now Arnold loses his red shirt thing. If he was going to red shirt, they said something about that. It's just, this offense is horrific. It's bad. It's really bad. And South Carolina's front 7's really that good.
Yeah.
Like, it might be one of the best front 7s in the SEC, if not the country.
No, we were talking about how good Beamer is and what he's doing with the team, and this was a great example of that, because they easily, they know who's, like, if they're in the playoff mix or if they're not. Players know. And so I always thought that, sometimes getting up for games or some motivation might be tough, but they definitely didn't, there was no problem there. They played outstanding. So, yeah.
I mean, they went to Oklahoma and just embarrassed them in their own stadium. So, and we called it. We said I'm pretty sure South Carolina's going to handle them, and I don't think they care where this game's happening. But man, I didn't think it was going to be this ugly.
No.
So South Carolina, last note, they might be one of the best half teams ever.
Yes. Good point.
That defense is so good. All right, what do you got?
So the third worst thing I saw this weekend is what happened to FSU. That they
man, that's my number one. Okay.
Oh, was it?
So I'll fast forward down to that. Duke was favored against FSU, which I've never seen before, and Duke covered. Which is another thing, which is crazy. And they had 4 turnovers, and I just don't know where you go from here. And it's on my worst ever, but I'm enjoying it a little bit too much. It's just great to see them really struggle. Oh yeah, we're biased, as evidenced by your Florida helmets.
Yes.
Duke. All right, FSU, 3 turnovers in 3 consecutive offensive plays. I don't think I've ever seen that.
No.
And how about this? You just said Duke was favored and Duke covered.
Mm-hmm.
Duke only had 180 total yards of offense.
Yeah.
And if you subtract the 5 penalties for 44 yards, that's 136 yards of offense, and they covered.
Yeah.
That's how bad Florida State is. I mean, what is this? This team is horrifically bad. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, yes, we're kind of relishing. We're Gator alum. It's a little bit fun to see it, but at the same time, now it's just a fascination thing. How can a team fall this far and be this bad? How do you lose to a team that only had 180 yards of offense?
No, and this like there's some teams that have like up years and down years and things like that. But even in a down year, they would beat Duke. You know what I mean? Like that's the crazy part.
In a down year, they'd beat a team who only had 180 yards.
Yeah.
That's just unbelievable how bad they are.
Yeah.
Man, it's just clearly the quarterback doesn't matter. They're just bad.
Duke only had 180 yards, but the time of possession was the same, that's not easy to do either.
Jeez. All right. We're on me now.
Yes. Yeah. Your third one.
So,
or no, your second one.
My number 2 worst thing ever, which is odd because this is in the same as your number 1 best ever. So I have SEC big games, bad offense. So the Bama Tennessee game had 5 total turnovers. The third down percentage was 9 for 28. And 26 accepted penalties. 26 accepted penalties for 200 yards. Could have easily had another 5. That could have been a 30 penalty game. And the first 3 quarters, as far as offense goes, it's just unwatchable football. The offenses were so bad. They finally got their act together kind of in the fourth quarter. And this is exactly what we said. Someone's got to win this game. And it looked just like that. 2 incompetent offenses fumbling their way around the field, just throwing interceptions. They do not look like well-coached teams. Jalen Milroe looks like he's regressing or hasn't progressed at all.
That's the part that's crazy because he's looked lights out this season, and it was not that play on Saturday. And the frustrating part is that they've missed open people, and there's a couple drops in there too, but that's just execution 101. Like you have to hit the open person, but the open person has to catch the ball, and most of the times they do. And it's just this time no one was doing anything in this one. And it was rough to watch. It was still the reason I can appreciate good defense. Like I like watching good defense stop a team like the Georgia did at the beginning of the Texas game. But this wasn't necessarily amazing defense. It was just offense was struggling executing, which is not the same.
And that's the note I have here. Was this good defense or is this bad offense? No, this is bad offense. Same with the Georgia-Texas game. Besides Georgia's dominating defensive performance at the beginning of the game, those were both ugly offensive games. And you're right. Iam Aliava was throwing wide open guys and missing them by 4 and 5 yards. So he still won.
Yeah.
But God, he played bad. I mean, the game was there for the taking. Alabama is not. This season could get pretty bad. This season could get really ugly. So that's one of the 2 games. Then the Georgia-Texas game.
Mm.
How about this one, Dover? Try this one on for size. 7 total turnovers, 8 for 31 on third downs combined. 15 penalties is kind of average. Georgia had 2 targeting calls, 2 guys thrown out, should have had a third guy thrown out. I don't know if I even like this thing of throwing kids out of games for targeting. I know they're trying to get it out of the game, but that's when I've heard Middlecoff say this on another podcast. Like there's so few games players get to play in college anyways, and to remove one of the games from their college career, that's a lot, especially if they don't go on to the NFL.
Most of them don't.
Right.
Yeah. No,
go ahead.
The first targeting with the safety that was like 17 or 47 or whatever, the white guy, that was a good call. Like he was coming in with the head down, and it's exactly the form that they're trying to get away. Like they got to get rid of that, because that's going to cause more injuries, not just to the other person, but to himself. And so like that has to get out. The other ones, I'm closer to agree with you, because it was on when it happened in real time, it didn't look like it was targeting, but when you saw the replay, like technically the helmet did hit the helmet first, but it was more glancing to the side. But it was the first one, head was down, there was an axial load going forward, and that there.
And it is, as you say, it's to protect both the guy who's getting hit and the guy laying the hit. The guy laying the hit could hurt himself pretty badly, very badly. But still, I would make it, I don't know, make it a 15-yard penalty, and then if you get 2, you're out or something like that. It just seems really, that's a bad enough penalty that the coach would don't do that again. But to lose the half the game plus the first half of the next game, like you have to be out for 4 quarters. That's a lot to take away from a college player who only has a few, 10, 20 games maybe of starting, and you're taking a whole game away from them. And again, they're not trying to hurt anyone, and it is becoming less and less. I don't know. I think you could penalize them in a way where it's not, you don't have to take the game away from them. So
it can also almost be like a technical foul type of situation, like in the NBA, where like if you get a 2, then you're suspended, or
that's what I said.
Like
just 2.
So,
but and I get that you have to. Seems reasonable that you lose the beginning of the next game if this happens in the second half, because otherwise you could sort of just be all perfect. It's fourth quarter. We can just spear everybody. So, but also in that game, both teams were under 5 yards per pass average. Neither team was over 4 yards per run, and both teams didn't even get to 290 yards offense. Like, this was not a good offensive performance. So the winning team, who I feel like Georgia really, this game was never in question. They just had them. Yeah. And maybe the first drive or so, it took them a little bit. And then it was obvious they're just the better team, and Texas has no chance here. But if I gave you this stat line, would you think this is the winning team? 14 total first downs, 6 for 17 on third down efficiency, 175 passing yards, 3 interceptions, 4.3 yards per pass, 110 rushing yards, 3.9 yards per rush, 7 penalties for 78 yards. And like I said, 3 interceptions. Would you think that's the winning team?
No. Well, I mean, if the other team stats have to be worse, right. So the other team, it would have been a defensive slog, which it was, right. But not just the defensive slog. Like, the defense was playing really well, but they weren't executing on offense. And it was, here, let me ask you this. So we're still talking about Georgia, Texas, right? Okay. So would you have stuck with the Manning, or would you have gone back to Ewers?
I was wondering that while the game was happening. I don't understand his thought process there. Ewers clearly looked like he just couldn't get it done there. Yeah. And when did they go to Manning? At the very end of the first half for a bit? I think just to shake it up. I mean, Manning's hasn't looked bad at all. But the one thing I said to Dina, I'm like, if Manning stays in, that's the end of Ewers.
Yeah.
Like, if he stays in and actually brings this game back, that Ewers' career's, how on earth could you put him back in? It's like, oh, we'll go to the backup to beat the best team in the country, but then we'll come back to you. So my thought when they put him back in was, if Manning goes in, that's it. Ewers on the bench for the rest of the season. So I don't know what they needed to do there. I don't think it would have mattered. They just were overmatched. They were just overmatched.
Yeah,
I think.
No,
And
it was really apparent on the
Mhm.
and the 11 for Georgia, that
I was
defensive
just
end.
going to give him some
Oh,
flowers.
yeah, that guy
Holy
is
smokes, that
that
guy.
was crazy, like good. How that
Eight,
guy is like
I got him here, Jalen Walker, eight solo tackles, 3 sacks, and he's basically spent the whole day doing whatever
yeah,
he felt like. The O-line had no answer for that guy.
yeah, no, 8
Jeez.
tackles, 3 sacks, and like in a whole bunch of fear-induced passes.
Just
Like it's
terrorizing him.
yes,
Just terrorizing
exactly.
him all game
You
long.
know, it's the anxiety causing presence, which is
Yeah.
not doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but that guy
Yeah.
knowing that he's there chasing you down is, I don't know.
Mm-mm.
I wouldn't have completed a pass, but
Yeah, he was overwhelming.
yeah.
All right, well, what do
All
you
right,
got?
so the second worst thing that I saw this weekend, this is are our old conferences still available? So this is USC and Oklahoma. Wondering if the old Pac-12 or Big 12 are still available for them to go back to. So USC, they've lost 4 times. Losing to, Michigan or Penn State might not surprise you, but they've also lost to Minnesota and Maryland now. And so no one would have thought that at the beginning of the season, and thought that they were going to come in and be competitive, like to win the division or the conference. And it's really not been like that. So that's, that was really disappointing by USC. We've already talked about Oklahoma and how much they got killed by South Carolina. But yeah, that's USC's lost 3 games in a row now.
Yeah,
And 4
and
out of
those
the
are
last 5, which is
enough
crazy.
conference games that they're just not in the they're
Yeah.
not in play anymore here. It's too bad. The defense is starting to fail again, so it's the same old story with Lincoln Riley. At the beginning of the season, it looked like it was improved, but it turns out they're playing teams with bad offenses.
Mhm.
So the defense actually has not improved, and I don't understand how a coach this far into his career still not figure it out.
Mhm.
With the resources USC has, there's no excuse at all. There was no excuse at Oklahoma either.
Mhm.
But there's just no excuse for the defense to perpetually be this bad.
Mhm.
I'm never going to understand how it has to be a cultural thing. It just has to be.
Yeah.
Because bad defense follows Lincoln Riley around. And
Yeah.
even this year where he says it's going to change, it just doesn't know. Because the
No,
offense is good enough. They put up plenty of points every game.
Yeah, and the offense isn't quite clicking as well as it has in the past. So they're, instead of winning the game like 40-30, you're losing it like 33-30 or something. So the offense isn't bad, but it can't overcome the defense like it used to in the past. So
yeah,
it's
like Caleb Williams' Heisman year,
right?
Really patched over. Well, everyone
Yes.
knows this. It patched over how bad the defense really was. But that's a perfect point. They need 45 points a game to win. Still,
Yes,
because 30-ish should be enough to win most games if you have a legit national caliber defense, which they do not. So 30 points. I mean, that can't get them past Minnesota, can't get them past Maryland. I mean, we're talking middle of the pack. No offense to Minnesota, Maryland, middle of the pack, Big 12 teams that they just can't get past. But this is, I keep saying, this is USC. I must sound like 20 years ago thinking, but they should be this good. There's certain teams that should be this good all the time.
Yeah.
And USC's every bit in the category with LSU, those sort of teams that they should not go this long being essentially irrelevant. It's not, this shouldn't be this way. All right. Well, we've already talked about my number one worst. So I'll move on to my moron play of the week.
Okay.
Is Braden Marshall of UCF gets a 70-yard interception run back and drops the ball. This arrogant look at me bullshit thing these goddamn players do. I know I've talked about it before. It's utterly infuriating. I'd cut him from the goddamn team for this bullshit. He gets to the 1-yard line and flicks the ball away because he's just too cool for school and couldn't be bothered to carry it through the end zone. It has nothing to do with not knowing you're not in the end zone. There is obviously a culture of there's an arrogance to this concept of I couldn't even be bothered to carry it all the way across the goal line. I still haven't quite figured it out, but it's for sure some sort of narcissistic thing. Deshaun Jackson was notorious for this bullshit. It's the sort of attitude where you run to the goal line, then just stop and then step over the goal line. Like get the hell out of here with that bullshit. That's infuriating. The coach the thing is, Iowa State, everyone thought he was in. The ball was sitting in the end zone. All an Iowa State player had to do was drop on it, and it would have been a touchback.
Yeah.
Get the hell out of here. I'd
No,
cut that kid. I'd send him to the locker room, take his shit off right there and then after that play.
they showed that clip during the Georgia-Texas game, and the Georgia-Texas announcers looked at it, and I remember the one guy was just like, how does this happen? Because this happens semi-regularly, like more often than you would think. It should be like a once in 100-year type thing, but it actually, I believe it happens almost every year. There's at least one
year. It's happened multiple times. It's happened multiple times this year already.
Yeah, and it's just unexcusable. I don't. It really, it goes against, again, the same thing. Like we've talked about this before. The goal in coaching is to set you up for life, and the integrity, and be like you've been there before, and stuff like that. And it just goes against all that stuff. So
it's just the arrogance of it all. Oh, yeah. You know what? Can I throw in my number one worst ever then?
Yeah, sure.
If I'll add in the fake injury in the Alabama game. That is pathetic.
That's where they shoved him back on the field and he went down.
His coaching staff, shame on you for that. So I understand in that moment afterwards they were saying, coming out of I guess it was a timeout or a TV timeout, his team didn't get their chance to substitute. So while they were attempting to substitute, they were going to get caught with, I guess, too many men on the field, and Tennessee was going to snap the ball. So instead, the coach just shoved a guy on the field, told him to go down, then pointed, look, he's down. Like that is pathetic. Yeah. Shame on you, all the Alabama coaches. Get the hell out of here with that bullshit.
Yeah.
Yes, I get it. You said you're thinking, oh, we got ripped off out of our substitution opportunity. And the announcer's like, oh, I understand why he's upset. But you don't do that.
No.
That is so blatant. So at least the refs called them for an illegal substitution anyways, which I guess they don't even have a call for that.
Right.
Like, what is that? And that's the first time I think I've ever seen refs actually blatantly see that, okay, that's fake, whatever that was. I mean, to me, that's an unsportsmanlike conduct on the sideline. That's like the coach gets that one, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's an embarrassment on college football, an utter embarrassment.
Yeah. No,
maybe a microcosm of what's going on in Alabama. You think Saban would do that? At least you think Saban would get caught doing something that bad? Maybe we're putting Saban too high on a pedestal here, but that's just a black eye on the game. Like, get that shit out of here.
Yeah. No, it was really horrendous.
They deserve to lose the game just for that.
Yeah. And it's and you're right. It's hard not to compare it against Saban, but it was just stuff like that wouldn't happen, with them, and they wouldn't, I don't know. It's really awful. It's disappointing. It's disappointing that the coach thinks that this is the way to take care of this. The coach
who pushed him out on the field then pointed that he's down. He knows that about 15 million people just saw that and are looking at him like he's a dirtbag.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't get it. So my worst thing ever, and then I'll get to my moron play too, was the worst thing ever was just the Michigan offense. I don't know what happened. They've got now the starting QB either was injured or they're not playing. They're just going with Tuttle now, which is fine. But it was like he didn't have the worst day. Like it was 20 for 32 for 208 yards, and he had an interception. So it's not great, but it's but it's not terrible. But it was they lost 21-7. Against and the opposing quarterback went 9 for 18 for 80 yards. So just a real rock fight of a game, but to be you lost by 14 points. Like it's just embarrassing. I don't know where Michigan has ended up now. That's
they're just not good.
No, they're not. That's it.
They have no quarterback. Doesn't matter who you put in there. Orgies. These guys are both terrible, and they shouldn't have beat USC. They shouldn't have beat Minnesota. They could easily only have what would that make them? 2 wins, 1 win, 2 wins?
Yeah.
Something like that. But they're going nowhere. They're going to get blasted when they play Ohio State or anybody stronger. Do you have the rest of their schedule there?
Yeah, I got it.
What do they got coming
here?
While you're looking through that, something that was a best ever, Illinois uniforms.
Oh,
holy smokes, were those awesome. Yeah. Did you see the little clip? It takes the guy 2 hours to hand paint each one.
That's
like he has a stencil and they looked awesome. That was, I don't think we're ever going to see anything that cool. The service academies do some cool stuff once a year, which hand painted or custom helmets.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're ever going to see something as cool as that. That's like, they're taking it to another level with these things.
Yeah, so Michigan just lost to Washington. They just lost to Illinois. They're hosting Michigan State, which who knows what
It's
happened.
not going.
Then they're
Yeah,
hosting Oregon, and
that's
then
not going
they're
to go
at
well.
Indiana. So they
That's not going to go
absolutely
well.
nope. They could the next three games could be pretty rough. So and then they finish with hosting Northwestern and then at Ohio State. So
Yeah, so that's what, 4 potential losses. I'll
Yeah.
give them the Northwestern game, but I can't. They can legitimately lose all those other games.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's that? How many losses do they already have? 2?
So
3?
they're 4-3 right now. Yeah, because they've lost to Texas, Washington, and Illinois.
So that's a 7-loss team. No bowl.
Yeah, at least
If that
three, at
happens.
least 3 more, like at least 6 more losses. So
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
5 or 6, whatever. That's
At least 6 losses, could be 7.
yeah.
So they could be out of a bowl game.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if a couple of those games broke a different way, they could be a 2-win team.
Yeah. Also, the least interesting Ohio State Michigan game in the last like 10 years. Like it's
You know what's kind of crazy? We have FSU on our disaster watch. It's kind of like Michigan's not too far away from being a disaster watch team
you're
at
right.
this point, too.
They've done it a different way. Like it's been more of a slow burn with Michigan, but it's absolutely getting to the point where they're gonna, they could finish with be not a bowl eligible, unranked. Like that's a pretty great.
Okay, so to be fair to Michigan, they do have really good running backs, and they do have a strong defense. It's not like they're getting their doors blown off. For some reason, they just don't feel like playing a full game and let everyone back in at the end. So they're not as horrifically bad as FSU, but man, they're on their way to a bad season, and it sort of parallels this. Go from a really high, win the national championship, don't lose, to this is just a mess. And same thing with Florida State, 13-0 to a mess. So they're having a parallel run of 2 back-to-back years here.
Yeah, my moron play of the week was just the whole pass interference thing, pick 6, throwing stuff on the field situation for the Georgia-Texas game, because that was, first of all, it was not pass interference, right? So that it was the wide receiver ran in the defensive back, and then the defensive back caught the ball. So it shouldn't have been a flag in the first place, but they did flag it. So then you just have to go with it now because it's not reviewable. But then the fans started throwing stuff on the field, which gave them time to talk about it. Then once they cleared the stuff off the field, then the ref said, you know what, we've thought about it. It's not pass interference, which is absolutely ridiculous. So because you're swinging the game right there. Like it went from Georgia, just an incomplete pass, another down, to like almost a pick 6, right? So and what the worst part about this is that because the fans threw stuff on the field, that benefited them. That gave them the refs time to talk about it, like, which is encouraging. That is another way to look at it, which is terrible.
Yep.
So that for that reason alone, they shouldn't have done it, but they should have just stayed with it. But that was just terrible. That was a really bad, exhibition of reffing.
It was the absolute wrong way to arrive at the correct call.
Exactly. Yes.
That was just a mess. Now, shame on the Texas fans. That's bad.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
No. Be
have
better than that.
Some class.
Listen, bad calls happen. Okay. And it really sucks and it's frustrating, but it happens with both teams. It happen, everyone gets them every now and then, but you can't lose it like that. Like that's, because if it's really bad, they're going to call the game, or the home team would have to forfeit and stuff. So there's nothing good comes out of that.
Well, I mean, you could, maybe it was water bottles, whatever it was, but you could hit somebody on the sidelines who's just holding a camera, or somebody, a report, just somebody who's not in a helmet and pads who's going to be protected.
You could hit someone in the first couple rows if your arm's not as good as you think it is.
Yeah.
So like you're
right.
Because not everything makes it onto the field.
No. If you don't have a tight spiral on that bottle, you could throw a duck and hit somebody who's not expecting it.
Yeah.
All right. So Flowers.
Yep.
All right. First off, Jonathan Kim, Michigan State's kicker, 6 for 7 field. Listen to me.
Yeah, I know.
Listen to me. Don't give me that.
6
for 7 field goals, long of 55, 2 for 2 extra points, 20 total points by himself, which equaled the Iowa point total in that game.
Man,
so they won that game 32-20, and he by himself matched Iowa. So Aiden Childs is something else to watch too. He's gonna be a Heisman candidate in the next 3 years. But yeah, Jonathan Kim single-handedly kept them in that game. They kept getting stopped in the red zone, and he just kept coming through. And I actually thought, as I was watching that game, I thought, man, if you've got a good enough kicker, you can hang in there. You can get to a legitimate point total just from a consistent, just keep hitting field goals. Just keep hitting field goals.
Mm-hmm.
So that was he deserved flowers for that one.
Yeah, that's good. I had just from some of the other games that we haven't talked about. So I had Klubnik is getting flowers too. 308 yards, just 23 for 35 passing, 308 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Good on them. Good on taking care of business against Virginia. Clemson's, sneaking into the top 10 now, right? So all of a sudden that's going to change the standings a bit in terms of where they're going to be. So good on them for doing it.
He's got a little Anthony Richardson in him. He'll hit the 20-yard in route, or he'll hit a nice long, and then he'll completely sail a wide open guy in the flat. He'll miss him by 10 yards. And he did that back to back, missed the guy in the flat, then hit a 20-yard downfield shot. And I thought, man, how can you do that? Like, how can you have such a good pass and such an awful pass in the same 1 minute stretch? But he's still not refined though. But yes, he had a good game.
Yeah, and they had. It's too bad Clemson's not playing Miami this year, which is too bad because that would have been a good game. But
all right, we already gave Cam Ward his flowers. We already gave Jalen Walker, that monstrous defensive end from Georgia, his flowers. So I have Caden Durham, LSU running back, 21 for 101, 3 TDs. He looks like a legit running back there.
Yep.
And then I'll throw in one more here. Avery Johnson. 19. How about this stat line for Avery Johnson? Remember who we're talking about here. QB. 19 for 29, 298 yards passing, no interceptions, 0 rushing yards.
That's crazy.
That is nuts for that guy.
Yes. Don't know how that happened. But but good on him for taking care of everything he needs to throwing the ball. So that is, if they didn't need him to run, then hats off to you.
Well, the post-game interview, I think he had a quote saying that they clearly designed this to take away the run. So he's like, they were going to force me to beat them with his arm, and he did. Yep. So good for him, showing that he's not just a running quarterback.
Yeah. The other flowers I got is, there was the QBs from Indiana, which we've already covered that way too. But Jaden Baugh, the running back for Florida, that was Florida. Kentucky was favored to win that game. Florida ended up winning. But he was 22 carries for 106 yards and 5 touchdowns. I can't remember the last time a Florida running back had 5 touchdowns. So hats off to them.
I can't remember the last time the whole team had 5 touchdowns in a game.
This game started out exactly like I thought it would. It was sort of 3-0, then 6-0, then 6-6, and it was like, yep, that's exactly what everyone thought. This game, the over under was a really low score too. But ended up 48-20, which was weird. So
if you were looking at Kentucky's schedule and you were trying to think what game would be the one they'd lose 48-20, it wasn't going to be Florida.
Yeah, great call.
And the whatever it was, 12-17, whatever the Georgia game was, that's the game you think they would have got their doors blown off. So Kentucky, what an odd team. They beat Ole Miss.
I know.
They take everything out of Georgia for Georgia to beat them. Then Florida kicks their ass.
Yeah, Kentucky. They lose to South Carolina 31-6.
Yeah.
Then they lose to Georgia 13-12. Then they beat Ole Miss 20-17. Then they lose to Vandy after they came off their win against Alabama, who almost struggled with Ball State but ended up winning. So
can you see them? They're on the wall, or are they just not in frame?
Yeah.
Are they up there somewhere? Can you see them?
Not immediately.
They're besides Miami. You probably can't see them. I had to put them on the wall. Next time, if they win again, they're getting moved into like main picture here.
Yeah.
So flowers to Vandy for just still winning. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my last flowers, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, Buffalo's 5-1. So officially surpassed last year's win total. Totally in the mix for the Big 12.
Yep.
Another complete game where they took care of business. And they're, so everything about this turnaround, going from 1-11 to 4 wins, and they could have had maybe 4 more wins. They had some close calls last year. Now they're putting together real games. They're putting together complete games where somehow both the offensive and defensive line just, I don't know what he's told them, or if it's just the talents.
They're playing way different.
The talent's rounding into form. And now he's I think he's gonna easily surpass this point total, easily get to a bowl game, and it seems like they might be right in there at the end for the Big 12 championship game. Last note, and I'll let you have your time. He's limiting Travis Hunter when he doesn't need him, and he's not wearing that kid out, which is smart.
That's the first time they've ever done that, right? So I think that's a good call, especially since he was coming off an injury. But no, to your point, the offensive defensive lines look completely different. They held Arizona scoreless in the second, third, and fourth quarter. Like that's, Arizona's a good team. So that was it's a complete game. This probably should have been on my best list too, because it was a complete game, which is now, that's been a couple times that's happened this season, which is, making a difference. So yeah, they've got some interesting games coming up. They got Cincinnati and Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. Like they can be in all those games. So,
and the more we see of K-State, the more that game ages well for Buffalo.
Yes,
Buffaloes. That's a legit team. They if things break all the right way for Colorado, they might have to play them again if they make it to the Big 12 championship game. They're probably going to be up against them again.
Yeah, how they sort out the ties or like who's going to be in the championship game is going to be really weird because BYU's 4-0. Iowa in conference 4-0. Iowa State's 4-0. Kansas State is 3-1. Texas Tech's 3-1. Cincinnati's 3-1. Colorado's 3-1. So like, there's a lot of who did you beat? Who didn't you beat? Like that's going to be how they're going to be interesting. The tie break's going to be weird.
This for me is the most fun conference to watch on a consistent basis. I mean, they had the two best game-winning drive. They're just fun to watch. A lot of the teams in there are fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's all the Flyers I had. Anything else?
No, that's it for me.
All right. Well, as we've discussed, we have to do our NFL review tomorrow, and I already know college is going to win. There's just nothing the NFL can produce. There's nothing the NFL that can produce that's going to match some of the fun that we saw here. But you know what? We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. But if you like our show and you're still here watching us and you haven't subscribed, we'd appreciate it if you want to subscribe. If you like what we got here, maybe share it with some friends you think might enjoy it. And as Gator alums, I am wearing a Georgia shirt, so we can put our bias on the shelf, even though you see a bunch of helmets behind Dover.
I'll be honest with you. You sent me a Tennessee shirt, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't put it on. That's part of the reason.
They didn't deserve the shirt this week. They didn't deserve the shirt this week.
Yeah.
No. All right. Well, catch us at the next episode. Thanks, guys.